My name is Lena Moore, and by the time I turned 35, I had learned how to disappear without actually leaving. You smile. You keep your head down. You tell yourself it's temporary. That's how I survived living in my parents' basement with my son. When my marriage ended and everything fell apart at once, job instability, legal fees, moving costs, I did what everyone says you should do. I went home. I told myself it would be for a few months. Just long enough to breathe. Just long enough to get back on my feet. But months turned into a year. The basement became our entire world. One small window near the ceiling that let in a stripe of daylight, a pull-out couch that creaked every time I moved, and stacks of boxes I never unpacked because some part of me refused to believe we belonged there. I didn't want my son, Noah, to think this was permanent. Noah was 9 going on 10, quiet, observant, too good at reading rooms he shouldn't have had to read yet. He noticed things, like how upstairs, the fridge was always stocked with snacks labeled in marker for my sister's kids. How their shoes lined the entryway in neat rows, brand new and bright. How the backyard trampoline, bought just because, was never for him. My sister Rachel lived 10 minutes away, but she might as well have lived in the house full time. Her kids were everywhere. Loud. Celebrated. Planned around. Noah and I were accommodated. I worked 2 jobs. Mornings at a dental office, evenings doing remote scheduling work. I paid for Noah's clothes, his school supplies, his field trips. I didn't ask my parents for money. I didn't ask for favors. I told myself that if I stayed small, if I stayed grateful, things would stay peaceful. But there was one thing I refused to let disappear. Noah's 10th birthday. Double digits felt big, important, like a line between surviving and becoming. I wanted him to feel seen, not spoiled, not flashy, just celebrated. So I started saving quietly. $5 here, $10 there. Extra cash tucked into an envelope taped behind a loose board in the basement. I skipped coffee, skipped takeout, skipped anything that wasn't necessary. I planned something simple but special. A small room at the community center, pizza, balloons, and a local woman who brought gentle animals for kids to pet. Noah loved animals. Always had. He didn't know the details, but he felt something coming. I caught him once standing near the basement closet, staring at the bag of decorations I'd hidden. When he noticed me watching, he smiled, wide and hopeful, and that smile nearly broke me. 2 days before the party, I came home late from work. The house was quiet in that heavy way that makes your chest tighten. My mom was standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, already waiting. No greeting, no small talk. She didn't ask how my day was. She said, "Rachel thinks her kids will feel left out." I blinked. What? She sighed like I was the one being difficult. The birthday party. Since her girls aren't having one right now, we think it's best to cancel it. We'll just do cake here. The words didn't land right away. They floated. Wrong. Out of place. Cancel. Noah's birthday. I asked. She shrugged. It's not a big deal. He's a kid. He won't remember. Something cold slid down my spine. I waited for her to soften, to say she was joking, to acknowledge what she was asking me to erase. She didn't. She turned back to the counter and started wiping it, calm and final. In that moment, I understood something I had spent years avoiding. Noah and I weren't family here. We were guests. Temporary ones. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't beg. I walked downstairs, sat on the edge of the pull-out couch, and watched Noah sleep. His face was relaxed, trusting, unaware that the one day he'd been quietly waiting for had just been taken from him for someone else's comfort. At 4 a.m, I started packing. Not dramatically, not angrily, carefully. Clothes, school papers, toothbrushes, the envelope of birthday money. I moved like someone who finally understood the rules of the game. Noah woke up while I was carrying the last bag. "Mom," he whispered. "Why are you up?" I smiled, even though it hurt. "We're going on a little adventure." He nodded. He always did. An hour later, we were on the road, the house shrinking in the rearview mirror. I didn't know exactly where we were going. I just knew we weren't staying somewhere my son's joy was considered optional. And I didn't look back. We didn't tell anyone where we were going. Not my parents. Not my sister. Not even most of my friends. I learned early that when you're leaving a place that benefits other people, silence is safer than honesty. I drove with both hands tight on the steering wheel, the sky still dark. Noah curled in the passenger seat, hugging his backpack like a pillow. The radio stayed off. I needed my thoughts quiet, contained, like fragile glass I couldn't afford to drop. We ended up at Tara's apartment, an old coworker turned friend who once told me, "If you ever need a couch, it's yours." I hadn't believed I'd actually need it. She opened the door in sweats, hair a mess, eyes still half asleep. One look at my face, and she didn't ask questions. She just stepped aside and said, "Come in." That kindness almost undid me. Her apartment was small, warm, cluttered with life. A sharp contrast to the basement we'd left behind. Tara handed Noah a blanket and pointed to the couch. "You hungry?" she asked him. He nodded shyly. While she scrambled eggs, I finally sat down and let the weight of everything press into my chest. I expected to cry. I didn't. What I felt instead was a strange, floating calm, like when you finally stop treading water and let yourself sink just enough to breathe. Noah's birthday was the next day. I lay awake that night staring at the ceiling, replaying my mother's words over and over. "He won't remember." They were wrong. Kids remember who shows up. They remember who protects them. They remember who makes space for them when the world tells them to shrink. I canceled the community center. I canceled the petting zoo. I stared at my phone for a long time before deleting the reminder I'd set months earlier. Noah turns 10. In the morning, Tara left early for work, but not before leaving money on the counter and a note that read, "Make today special." I didn't use her money. I walked Noah to a nearby grocery store. We bought cupcakes with blue frosting, a cheap pack of candles, and frozen pizza. Back at the apartment, Tara's teenage niece, home from college, set up her old gaming console and let Noah play while I arranged the cupcakes on mismatched plates. When we sang, Noah laughed. Not a polite laugh. Not a forced one. A real, surprised laugh, like he hadn't expected joy but accepted it when it showed up anyway. That night, as he fell asleep clutching a toy dinosaur Tara found in a drawer, he whispered, "This was my favorite birthday." I turned away so he wouldn't see my face. My parents didn't call. Not that day. Not the next. Not even after. I checked my phone more times than I'd like to admit. A message. A missed call. Anything. There was nothing. It was like Noah and I had quietly vanished, and no one had noticed the empty space. Rachel posted pictures online. Her kids at dance class. Family dinners. Smiling captions about being together. We were never mentioned. Something hardened in me then. Not anger exactly. Acceptance. Tara let us stay longer than I'd planned. I worked more hours, picked up weekend shifts, took on freelance work late into the night. I didn't complain. For the first time in years, exhaustion felt purposeful. Noah adapted faster than I did. He liked the predictability. Dinner at the same time. Walks to the park. Quiet evenings. He started asking questions again. Normal kid questions. He wasn't tiptoeing around adult moods anymore. 3 months later, I found a tiny 2-bedroom apartment across town. Old carpet. Thin walls. A kitchen that smelled faintly like lemons and bleach. It was perfect. We moved in with an air mattress, a borrowed table, and exactly 0 expectations. Noah taped glow-in-the-dark stars to a ceiling and announced it was the best room ever. Life settled into something fragile but real. I didn't hear from my parents until late summer. My mother called like nothing had happened, like she hadn't erased my son's birthday for someone else's comfort. "Are you coming by this weekend?" she asked. "Rachel's kids miss you." I stared at the phone. "No," I said. There was a pause. A sharp inhale. "Lena, don't be dramatic." That was when I knew. They hadn't learned anything. And I finally understood that leaving the basement was only the beginning. Because next year, Noah would turn 11. And this time, no one was going to take it from him. Life didn't change all at once. It softened. Days became predictable in the best way. I worked, cooked simple meals, helped Noah with homework at the tiny kitchen table that wobbled if you leaned on it too hard. We laughed more. We argued less. We slept better. And slowly, without either of us noticing, we stopped waiting for permission to exist. Noah grew into himself. He joined a local soccer team. He made friends who knocked on our door, asking if he could come out and play. Sometimes I watched from the window as he ran across the courtyard, laughing freely, and felt something loosen inside my chest. That fall, I found a better remote job. Steady hours. Decent pay. Nights free. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was planning. Noah's 11th birthday sat quietly on my calendar like a promise. I didn't mention it to anyone, not Tara, not coworkers, not even Noah. I learned my lesson about sharing good things too early. I started saving again. Not desperately this time. Intentionally. This party wasn't about proving anything. It wasn't revenge. It was about restoring something that had been taken. I booked a small outdoor venue at a local park. String lights, picnic tables, room to run. I hired a magician who specialized in kids' parties, ordered pizza from Noah's favorite place, and rented a bounce house that made me laugh just thinking about it. Every choice was made with care. Noah helped me hand out invitations after soccer practice. I watched his hands tremble slightly as he gave them to his friends, like he was afraid it might disappear if he touched it too hard. Kids RSVP'd. Parents texted. The guest list filled. And for the first time in my adult life, I felt proud. Not loud pride, not showy pride. The quiet kind that settles into your bones. 2 days before the party, a picture appeared online. One of the moms posted a photo of the handmade invitations Noah and I had worked on together, blue paper, silver stars, his name written carefully in marker. It was innocent, sweet. I didn't think about who else might see it. The morning of the party, Noah woke up buzzing with nervous energy. I braided his hair the way he liked it when he was younger. He wore a shirt he'd picked out himself, sneakers he'd saved for. When we pulled into the park and he saw the banner, Noah's Space Adventure, he stopped. For me, he whispered. I nodded. He hugged me, so tightly I could barely breathe. The party was everything I hoped for. Kids laughing. Parents chatting. Music playing softly. Noah racing from game to game. His joy unmistakable. I stood off to the side for a moment, just watching. That's when I heard a familiar voice. Well, this is a lot. I turned. My mother stood at the edge of the park, arms folded, Rachel beside her. My father hovered a few steps back, uncomfortable as ever. They hadn't been invited. For a split second, old instincts flared. Panic, guilt, the urge to smooth things over. Then I saw Noah freeze when he noticed them. His smile faltered. Something inside me clicked. This was my moment. My mother stepped forward like she belonged there. We thought we'd stop by, she said brightly. Family should be included. Rachel's eyes scanned the decorations, the kids, the gifts. Her mouth tightened. I didn't raise my voice. You need to leave, I said calmly. Rachel scoffed. Seriously? After everything? Yes, I replied. This isn't your space. My mother looked shocked. Hurt. Lena, don't do this in front of the children. I met her gaze. You did. The words hung heavy. Rachel opened her mouth to argue, but the attention was already shifting. Other parents were watching, listening. Noah walked over and stood next to me. He didn't look scared. He looked steady. That's when I knew. I had already won. They left shortly after, muttering. Unhappy. Unimportant. The party continued. Noah blew out his candles, surrounded by friends who wanted him there. When he made his wish, he smiled like he already knew it would come true. That night, after everyone left and the park lights dimmed, Noah leaned against me and said, I like it when it's just us. So did I. Because what my family never understood was this. They didn't lose us when we walked out of that basement. They lost us when they decided my son's joy was negotiable. The silence afterward was loud. 4 weeks after Noah's party, no one from my family reached out. No messages. No guilt-laced apologies. No pretending nothing had happened. And honestly, it felt like peace. Noah settled back into routine easily. School, soccer, homework sprawled across the coffee table. But I noticed something new in him. A confidence. He spoke more. Asked questions. Didn't hesitate before expressing what he wanted. One night, as I tucked him in, he asked softly, Are we in trouble? The question broke my heart. No, I told him. We're safe. He nodded, accepting it like truth. Because it was. A month later, my mother called. I almost didn't answer. But some part of me wanted to hear it. To hear what justification sounded like when it finally ran out of excuses. Her voice was strained. We need to talk. All of us. I agreed, on one condition, neutral ground. We met at a small cafe halfway between our places. Public. bright. No corners to trap me in. My mother arrived first, stiff and formal. My father followed, eyes tired. Rachel came last, late, annoyed, already defensive. We ordered coffee. No one touched it. My mother started. You embarrassed us. I smiled faintly. No. I set boundaries. Rachel scoffed. You always play the victim. I leaned forward. Then explain this to me. Explain why my son's birthday mattered less than your kids feeling uncomfortable. Rachel crossed her arms. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, I said calmly. You didn't want to explain to your children that the world doesn't revolve around them. So you asked my mother to erase my son instead. My mother opened her mouth, closed it. For once, she didn't interrupt. I continued. You raised me to be accommodating, quiet, grateful for scraps. And I let you. But you don't get to pass that lesson down to my child. Rachel laughed bitterly. You think you're better than us now? No, I replied. I think I'm done begging. The words landed heavier than yelling ever could. My father finally spoke. Your mother just wanted peace. I nodded. So did I. But peace that costs a child's joy isn't peace. It's control. My mother's eyes filled with tears, not the soft kind. The frustrated kind. You're tearing this family apart. I shook my head slowly. No. I'm stepping out of the role you assigned me. Silence. Rachel stood abruptly. This is pointless. She left first. As usual. My mother stared into her untouched coffee. You've changed. Yes, I said. Because I had to. When we stood to leave, she reached for my arm. I stepped back gently. I hope one day you'll understand, she said. I hope one day you'll listen, I replied. That night I cried. Not because I doubted myself, but because I finally understood something painful and freeing. I had been mourning people who never truly showed up for me. Weeks passed, then months. My mother tried to reinsert herself slowly, sending gifts for Noah through my father, texting vague messages like, hope you're well. I kept responses polite, distant. Rachel didn't reach out at all. Then came the school talent show. Noah signed up to play keyboard, something he'd been teaching himself quietly, without fanfare. The night of the show, the auditorium buzzed with proud parents and nervous kids. As Noah took the stage, I felt that familiar knot of worry twist in my stomach. Would he freeze? Would he look for someone who wasn't there? He didn't. He played confidently, focused. When he finished, the applause was loud, genuine. I stood, clapping until my hands hurt. That's when I saw my mother in the back row. She hadn't told me she was coming. Afterward, she approached cautiously. He was wonderful. Thank you, I said. She hesitated. I didn't realize how much he needed to be seen. I met her eyes. I did. She nodded slowly, like the truth was finally settling in. We didn't hug. We didn't reconcile. But for the first time, she didn't argue. And sometimes, that's the first crack in a wall that's been standing too long. At home that night, Noah grinned. Did you hear them clap? I did, I said, pulling him into a hug. He whispered, I'm glad you didn't cancel me again. I closed my eyes. I never will. Because protecting my child didn't make me difficult. It made me a mother. By the time winter came, our life felt settled in a way I hadn't known before. Noah was thriving. School awards, new friends, confidence that no longer wavered when adults entered the room. He spoke clearly. He asked for what he needed. And when something felt unfair, he said so without fear. That alone told me I'd done the right thing. Then, right before the holidays, I got a message I didn't expect. It wasn't from my mother. It wasn't from my father. It was from Rachel's oldest daughter, Lily. She was 13 now, old enough to notice things, old enough to question them. The message was short. Aunt Lena, can I talk to you? Just us. I sat with that message for a long time before replying. Finally, I wrote back. Of course. We met at a public library. Safe, neutral, quiet. Lily looked nervous, twisting the strap of her backpack. She didn't waste time. Why don't we see you anymore? She asked. Mom says you don't care about us. I took a slow breath. I care about you, I said gently. But sometimes adults make choices that hurt kids. And when that happens, I have to protect my own child. She frowned. Is this about Noah's birthday? So she knew. Yes, I admitted. Lily swallowed. Mom told us it was canceled because you were busy. I felt a familiar ache, but I stayed steady. It was canceled because your mom said celebrating Noah would make you and your siblings feel bad. Her eyes widened. That's not true. We wouldn't have cared. I know, I said softly. She stared at the table. I think Mom lies sometimes. I didn't confirm or deny. I didn't need to. That night, Noah asked why I looked tired. I had a hard conversation, I told him. He nodded. Those are the ones that matter. I smiled at him. Because he was right. A week later, the fallout began. Lily asked questions at home. Hard ones. The kind that don't go away when ignored. Rachel snapped. My mother tried to smooth things over. But the truth had been planted. On Christmas Eve, my father showed up at our door alone. No warning. He looked older. Smaller. I just wanted to see Noah, he said quietly. I let him in. They sat together on the couch, building a puzzle. Noah was polite but reserved. He no longer performed affection for adults who didn't earn it. When my father left, he hesitated. I should have spoken up sooner. Yes, I said. You should have. He nodded. No excuses. That night, Noah handed me a folded piece of paper. I wrote something. It was a letter. Messy handwriting. Honest words. Mom, thank you for not canceling me anymore. I like our life. I feel safe. I held that letter like it was sacred. In January, my mother finally asked to talk, really talk. We met again in public. This time, she didn't accuse. She didn't defend. I didn't realize how much I favored Rachel, she said quietly. I told myself I was keeping the peace. I looked at her. Peace isn't silent suffering. She nodded slowly. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to do better. I believed her more than I expected to. But I didn't rush reconciliation. Because growth isn't proven by words. It's proven by consistency. Rachel, however, doubled down. She told family members I was dramatic, that I turned her kids against her, that I was bitter. And for the first time in my life, I didn't care. Noah and I built our own traditions. Movie nights, pancake Sundays, road trips with no destination. One evening, as we washed dishes together, Noah asked, "Do you think people can change?" I considered the question carefully. Some can, I said, but whether they do or not, we don't have to wait around and get hurt. He nodded, absorbing it. That's when I realized something powerful. Breaking cycles doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it looks like a quiet home, a child who sleeps peacefully, and a mother who finally trusts herself. By the time spring arrived, something inside me had settled. Not healed completely. Some wounds leave scars, but settled enough that I no longer flinched when my phone buzzed or wondered what version of myself I needed to be for others. Our life had shape now. Mornings were rushed but warm. Noah made his own breakfast most days, humming while he packed his bag. I drank my coffee by the window, watching sunlight creep across the floor of our small apartment. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't impressive, but it was ours. My mother kept her distance, respectfully this time. When she reached out, it was to ask, not demand. To listen, not correct. She showed up to Noah's school events only when invited. She followed my rules. And slowly, carefully, trust began to rebuild, not as it was before, but as something new. Rachel never apologized. Instead, she posted carefully worded messages online about toxic family members and protecting her peace. People nodded along. I let them, because peace no longer required my explanation. The real shift came one quiet evening, months later. Noah and I were sitting on the couch, sharing popcorn and watching an old animated movie. Halfway through, he paused it and turned to me. "Mom." "Yes, sweetheart. Do you ever wish things were different with Grandma and Aunt Rachel?" I thought about it honestly. "Yes," I said. "I wish they had chosen kindness sooner." He nodded. "But I'm glad you chose me." The words hit deeper than anything that had come before. That was the moment I understood the full weight of my decision, the day I refused to let my son's birthday be erased. That choice had changed the trajectory of his childhood, and mine. At the end of the school year, Noah received a small award for leadership. When his name was called, he walked across the stage with confidence. I watched him from the audience, heart full, eyes burning. I wasn't alone anymore. I was standing where I belonged. After the ceremony, my mother approached us carefully. She smiled at Noah. "You did amazing." "Thank you," he said politely. She turned to me. You raised him well. I met her gaze. I protected him. The rest followed. She nodded, finally understanding. Later that night, Noah and I celebrated with takeout and laughter. As he brushed his teeth, he called out, "Hey, Mom." "Yes. Next year, can we have a party again?" I smiled to myself. Every year. Because birthdays were never just about cake. They were about being seen, being chosen, being celebrated without conditions. That night, after Noah fell asleep, I sat alone at the kitchen table and reread his old letter, the one that said thank you for not canceling me anymore. I realized something powerful. The moment I stopped trying to be a good daughter to people who hurt me, I became the mother my son needed. And that was enough. I don't know what the future holds for my family. Maybe there will be healing. Maybe there won't. But I do know this. My son will never grow up believing his joy is optional. He will never think love must be earned by shrinking. And he will never have to wonder if he matters. Because I chose him. And in choosing him, I finally chose myself.